September 30th, 1971. Game 1 of the candidates' finals. Bobby Fischer sits across from former world champion Tigran Petrosian. That day, Fischer achieved the greatest feat in chess history: 20 consecutive victories. But just 18 months earlier, Fischer was nowhere to be seen. Most people thought he'd never return. The path to the World Chess Championship worked like this. The world was divided into zones. The rules stated that the top 3 players would qualify for the interzonal. There was just one problem. Bobby Fischer refused to play. 18 months passed without Fischer playing a single competitive game. He had boycotted the zonal tournament for years. Many believed the American genius was lost forever. But they were wrong. In 1970, to general surprise and delight, Fischer agreed to participate in a special event: the Soviet Union versus the rest of the world in Belgrade. Fischer even agreed to step down to board 2 behind Bent Larsen. Despite being rusty from lack of practice, Fischer beat Petrosian in the first 2 games and drew the last 2. The Soviet Union edged to victory by a single point, but Fischer had announced his return. He followed this up with impressive results at the Chess Olympiad in Siegen, West Germany. Bobby Fischer was back. But there was still one massive problem. Fischer had disqualified himself from the World Championship cycle. Enter Colonel Edmondson. He knew Bobby was the only one who could beat the Russians. Hence, Edmondson and Grandmaster Palbenko hatched a plan. In 1969, the 3 American players who qualified for the interzonal were William Addison, Samuel Reshevsky, and Palbenko. If FIDE agreed, and if the other players in the US zonal agreed, Benko would give up his interzonal spot to Fischer. Ultimately, Edmondson persuaded FIDE to accept the deal. Benko received a modest $2,000 payoff for his sacrifice. Bobby Fischer was off to the city of Palma de Mallorca in the Balearic Islands. A miraculous year in chess history was about to begin. The interzonal took place in Palma's Concert Center. 24 competitors, but it was Fischer who drew the spectators. In the second half, he abruptly stepped up a couple of gears. Fischer won, and won, and won again. In a stupendous run, he eventually won the last 7 games in a row. He secured first place by a huge margin of 3.5 points. Now, 8 players remain to compete in the candidates round for the right to face world champion Boris Spassky. Fischer was drawn in the quarterfinals against Soviet Grandmaster Mark Taimanov. The match would be played at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver. The Soviets, they had no idea what was coming. Mark Taimanov lived an enviable double life: world-class grandmaster, also a highly respected classical pianist who performed duets with his wife, Lyubov Bruck. Taimanov came to Vancouver prepared. Mikhail Botvinnik handed over his enormous Fischer file in its entirety, compiled from painstaking deconstruction of all of Fischer's published games. Taimanov was backed by 3 Soviet grandmasters. Alexander Kotov led the team, supported by Yuri Balashov and Yevgeny Vasyukov. The full weight of the Soviet chess machine stood behind him. Fischer? He came alone. He'd hoped to bring Grandmaster Larry Evans as his second, but Evans refused, because Fischer demanded he abstain from journalism and leave his wife at home. So the format was first to 5.5 points wins, maximum 10 games. Fischer stunningly won 3 back-to-back games. After Game 3, Taimanov requested a break on health grounds. He's diagnosed with high blood pressure. After the break, Fischer again won 3 games straight. A complete 6-0 shutout. Fischer had just beaten a world chess grandmaster 6 games to none, with no draws. What happened next turned Taimanov's life upside down. He was thrown out of the USSR team and forbidden to travel for 2 years. He was banned from writing articles, was deprived of his monthly stipend. From being an elite member of Soviet society, Taimanov was now a discredited figure facing financial ruin. Fischer's next opponent, Bent Larsen of Denmark. Larsen was different from Taimanov. He was the only other Western player who'd posed a serious challenge to Soviet hegemony in the previous decade. He'd beaten Fischer twice before, but Fischer was unstoppable. He won 4 games straight, again, and just like Taimanov, Larsen complained of feeling ill and took a break. After the break, Fischer again beats Larsen back-to-back. Another 6-0 shutout. Let's add this up. 7 consecutive wins at the Interzonal in Palma, 6 wins against Taimanov, 6 wins against Larsen, 19 consecutive victories against the world's elite grandmasters. This had never been done in chess history. Public interest in Fischer was gathering momentum. No longer confined to chess columns on back pages, America had a new phenomenon. Fischer fever had begun. One opponent stood between Fischer and Boris Spassky, former world champion Tigran Petrosian. Petrosian was different. He was a defensive genius who specialized in grinding opponents down with deadly precision. When Petrosian was world champion, he had been the instrument through which the Soviets lied about Fischer's character and ability at chess. He had been editor of the Moscow chess magazine 64, which had been critical of Fischer. So Petrosian's moment of truth had arrived. Buenos Aires went absolutely crazy. Everywhere Fischer went, crowds mobbed him. Teenage girls, old-age pensioners. They grabbed at him, tried to shake his hand, pat him on the back. 1,500 spectators packed the theater for every game. Game 1. Halfway through, when Fischer found himself unexpectedly on the defensive, the lights blew. The clocks were stopped and Petrosian left the stage. Fischer, meanwhile, carried on, sitting there and staring at the board. His Soviet opponent complained to the arbiter that Fischer was benefiting from free calculation time. Fischer allowed Schmid to restart the clock, while he remained thinking in the darkness. Ultimately, Fischer won. His 20th consecutive Grandmaster victory. Statistically, one of the greatest performances in the history of any competitive sport. Now, Bobby Fischer would face Boris Spassky for the World Championship.
You said it's your title the Russians are holding. You don't like the Russians.
The Russians cheated at chess. They tried every way to avoid giving me a chance for a match. And they have slandered my name. And they just dead afraid of me. They have been for years. That's the true story.
And now you're going to get them?
Oh, now I'm going to try to get them.
The stage was set for Reykjavik, Iceland, 1972. The match of the century was about to begin.